In an era when the banners of the Crusades fluttered over the holiest lands of the Muslims, and amidst the fragmentation and weakness that afflicted the nation, a star rose from the heart of the mountains, an eagle from the eagles of the east. He restored the nation's glory and unity, and liberated Jerusalem from the clutches of occupation. This was Saladin, Yusuf ibn Ayyub, who was not merely a brilliant military commander, but a symbol of justice and tolerance, and a statesman who built the Ayyubid Empire on the foundations of knowledge and faith. This is not just the story of a king, but an epic of a man who united the scattered, led a nation to victory, and left an enduring legacy of honor and dignity. Saladin, Yusuf ibn Ayyub, was born around 1137 or 1138 CE in the city of Tikrit, Iraq, in a fortress commanded by his father Ni'am ad-Din Ayyub. His family, the Ayyubids, were of Kurdish origin and had served under the Zengid dynasty, which stood as a formidable barrier against Crusader expansion in the Levant. Saladin grew up in a military and religious environment. His uncle Shirkuh was a prominent military commander who took the young Saladin under his wing, teaching him the arts of combat and military planning. Initially, Saladin was not as fond of war as he was of religion and knowledge. He leaned towards a life of contemplation and studying Islamic jurisprudence and hadith. However, destiny was preparing him for a greater role. Saladin's first steps into the world of politics and warfare came when he accompanied his uncle Shirkuh on his campaigns to Egypt. At that time, Egypt was in a state of chaos and weakness, under the crumbling Fatimid Caliphate, and it was coveted by the Crusaders, who repeatedly tried to seize control of it. Nur ad-Din Zengi, the powerful ruler of Damascus, sent successive military campaigns to Egypt to repel the Crusader threat, and Shirkuh commanded these campaigns. During one of these campaigns, in 1168, Shirkuh and Saladin were besieged in Alexandria. Saladin displayed remarkable courage and organizational skill during this siege, impressing his uncle and other commanders. After a series of battles and negotiations, Shirkuh managed to gain control of Egypt and assumed the position of vizier of the Fatimid Caliphate. In 1169, Shirkuh died suddenly, and Saladin, despite his young age, found himself in an unexpected leadership position. The Fatimid Caliph Ayyubid chose him for the vizierat, perhaps believing he would be easily pliable. However, Saladin proved otherwise. Saladin's first action was to consolidate his authority in Egypt. He put an end to the chaos, reorganized the army, and strengthened the economy. He then made his historic decision to abolish the Shiite Fatimid Caliphate in 1171, returning Egypt to the Sunni Abbasid Caliphate in Baghdad. This was a bold and risky move, but it was essential to unite the Muslim ranks under one banner. After the death of his patron Nur ad-Din Zengi in 1174, Saladin found himself facing new challenges. The Zengid state entered into internal conflicts, and the Crusaders were lurking. Saladin embarked on a campaign to unite the Levant under his leadership. This campaign was not easy. It required years of negotiations and battles, in which Saladin demonstrated a blend of political cunning and military might. He captured Damascus, then Homs, Hama, and Aleppo, until he became the ruler of Egypt and most of the Levant. In 1175, the Abbasid Caliphate recognized him as Sultan of Egypt and Syria, thus proclaiming the establishment of the Ayyubid dynasty. Saladin's ultimate goal was the liberation of Jerusalem. However, he realized that this required first uniting the Muslim ranks and building an invincible military force. He spent years preparing, assembling armies, fortifying cities, and readying for confrontation with the Crusaders. Relations between Muslims and Crusaders were tense, punctuated by periods of truce and mutual raids. But the turning point came at the hands of Raynald of Hattin, the Crusader lord of Iraq, who was known for his treachery and brutality. In 1187, Raynald attacked a peaceful Muslim trade caravan near Iraq, killing and plundering its occupants, including women and children, refusing to stop despite agreements. When Saladin sent to demand the release of the captives and compensation for the caravan, Raynald responded with defiance and insolence. This provocative act was the straw that broke the camel's back. Saladin vowed to kill Raynald with his own hand and declared a general call to jihad. He gathered his armies from Egypt, the Levant, and Iraq, and set out to confront the Crusaders. The great confrontation occurred at the Battle of Hattin on Saturday, 25 Rabi' al-Akhir 583. Corresponding to July 4, 1187 CE, Saladin chose the battle site with genius. He lured the massive Crusader army, led by King Guy of Lusignan of Jerusalem and Reynold of Chatillon, into a desolate desert area between the hills of Hattin and the horns of Hattin. Saladin cut off their access to water and surrounded them. From all sides, the battle day was hot and brutal. The Crusaders' thirst and lack of water weakened them. Saladin ordered dry grass to be set ablaze, increasing the heat and obscuring visibility due to smoke. His plan was meticulous: weaken the enemy psychologically and physically before direct engagement. The battle erupted. The Muslims fought with great courage and high morale, while the Crusaders fought in desperation. Spears, swords, and catapults exchanged blows. Infantry divisions advanced, followed by cavalry. In the heart of the battle, Saladin saw the large Crusader standard, known as the True Cross or fragment thereof, which was a symbol for Christians in their battles. He ordered it to be attacked. When the standard fell, the Crusaders' morale completely collapsed. The battle ended in a crushing victory for the Muslims. Most of the Crusader army was killed or captured. King Guy of Lusignan, Prince Reynold of Chatillon, and many other Crusader leaders were taken prisoner. Saladin fulfilled his vow. He offered Guy water, but personally executed Reynold for his treachery and repeated aggressions. Hattin was a crucial turning point. It opened the way for Saladin to liberate the coastal cities that were under Crusader control, and finally, the ultimate goal. After Hattin, Saladin headed directly towards Jerusalem. He besieged the city in September 1187. After a siege lasting several days and fierce battles, the Crusader defenders agreed to surrender on terms. Stance here was remarkable, unlike what the Crusaders had done when they captured Jerusalem in 1099. Committing a terrible massacre against its inhabitants, Saladin showed great tolerance and generosity. He allowed everyone to leave the city safely in exchange for a ransom. For those who could not pay the ransom, Saladin released them, and even opened his treasury to help the poor and elderly leave. This was a great humanitarian gesture, embodying the noble Islamic values he believed in. On Friday, 27 Rajab, 583 R, corresponding to October 2nd, 1187 CE, Saladin entered Jerusalem as a conqueror. He raised the banner of Islam over the dome of the rock, and Al-Aqsa Mosque was purified from the Crusader presence. It was a historic moment, one that Muslims had dreamed of for centuries. Joy spread throughout the Islamic world. The liberation of Jerusalem did not mean the end of the conflict. The fall of Jerusalem angered Europe, prompting them to organize the Third Crusade, one of the largest Crusader campaigns, led by three of Europe's greatest monarchs: Holy Roman Emperor Frederick I Barbarossa, King Philip II Augustus of France, and King Richard the Lionheart of England. Saladin faced an enormous challenge. Richard the Lionheart was a tenacious, courageous, and cunning military adversary. Fierce battles ensued between them, most notably the Battle of Arsef in 1191, which Saladin lost but inflicted heavy casualties on the Crusaders and prevented them from advancing towards Jerusalem. The fighting continued for several years, during which Saladin demonstrated exceptional resilience, management of his exhausted armies, and negotiation skills. Ultimately, both sides realized that the war could not be decisively won, and the Treaty of Jaffa was signed in 1192. The treaty stipulated that Jerusalem would remain under Muslim control, allowed Christian pilgrims free access to holy sites, and recognized the coastal cities recaptured by the Crusaders. This was a diplomatic victory for Saladin as he secured Jerusalem for Muslims. Shortly after the Treaty of Jaffa, on March 4, 1193, Saladin died in Damascus after contracting a severe illness. He was 55 years old. His death was a shock to the Muslim world. He left behind a strong state, but more importantly, he left a legacy of honor, unity, and tolerance. He left no personal wealth, but he left a reputation as a just and ascetic leader, and a wise statesman. Saladin is considered one of the most prominent figures in Islamic and world history. His military tactics are still studied today, but more important than his military genius is his humanitarian and ethical side. He was known for his tolerance towards his adversaries, his generosity towards his subjects, and his justice that discriminated against no one. He honored treaties, kept his promises, and treated prisoners humanely. His story is recounted across generations as a symbol of unity, courage, and perseverance in upholding justice. Saladin restored hope to the nation and proved that strong will and sincere faith can change